who is arming the border communities between Uganda and South Sudan. The border region between Uganda and South Sudan is a volatile stretch of land marked by porous boundaries, cultural entanglement, and long-standing mistrust. The area has witnessed recurring violence in the form of cat raids, land disputes, ethnic rivals, and cross-border incursions. Underlying many of these problems is one fundamental question: who is arming the communities living along this contentious frontier? The proliferation of small arms in the region is a major contributor to insecurity, from semi-automatic rifles to improvised firearms. Weapons are now commonplace among both pastoralist warriors and some few civilians. This article investigates the sources of firearms, the actors involved in attacking, and the complex network that sustain the cycle of armed and violence. The first one is historical context, a legacy of conflict. To understand the arming of border communities, it is essential to look at the legacy of conflict in the region. For decades, the area of Uganda and South Sudan have been zones of instability, from the Lord's Eastern Army insurgency in Uganda to the decades-long civil war in South Sudan. Prior to South Sudan's independence in 2011, the region has been awash in arms. Weapons left over from previous conflicts remain in circulation. Former firefighters who never surrendered their arms, porous borders, and weak law enforcement institutions have made it easy for guns to flow into civilians' hands. Communities in places like Moyo, Yumbe, that is in Uganda, and Magui, Kajo, Keji, and Nikoto, South Sudan, are partially affected. The second thing is internal armed groups in South Sudan. South Sudan's unstable security environment has turned many local militias into sources of arms. Various factions allied to either President Salva Kiir or opposition leader Riek Machar have distributed weapons to tribal militias and community defense groups. Many of these arms are not accounted for and end up in unauthorized hands. For example, in eastern Equatorial State, particularly among the Toposa and the Dinga ethnic groups, local chiefs have admitted to harming youth for purposes of community defense. While intended for protection, these weapons often fuel intercommunal cat raids and border raids into Uganda. Moreover, during South Sudan's civil war, 2013-2018, large catches of arms are distributed to proxy militias. Some of these groups are seen splintered and sold shares with cross-border communities, either in exchange for cattle or through kinships. Cross-border arms traveling networks. One of the most persistent sources of weapons in the borderlands is smuggling. Armed traders use the region's rugged terrain and lack of formal security infrastructure to move guns across borders from South Sudan into Uganda or vice versa. Armed traders follow secret paths, often aided by corrupt officials or desperate civilians. In several instances, Ugandan security forces have intercepted vehicles and individuals attempting to transport arms across the border. In 2024, authorities in Kilgum and Lamore districts arrested suspects allegedly transporting arms destined for communities near the border. Some of these arms were traced to South Sudanese army stores that had been looted or sold. Many of the smugglers operate under the gaze of traders or pastoralists in regions where cattle remain the primary form of wealth. The exchange of livestock for guns is not uncommon. One AK-47 can fetch as many as 10 cows, depending on demand and accessibility. The fourth thing is rogue soldiers and corrupt officials. Another troubling source of weapons is the involvement of rogue elements within formal military and police institutions. In both South Sudan and Uganda, there have been reports of soldiers selling arms to civilians or militias. These transactions are often driven by economic desperation, lack of oversight, or deliberate sabotage. In South Sudan, particularly the aftermath of civil war, Perhaps some government soldiers have been accused of arming their own tribal king groups living along the Uganda border. The goal, according to local sources, is to empower their people to defend land claims or engage in retaliatory violence. In Uganda, while the state has carried out multiple disarmament programs, critics argue that loopholes remain. Some disarmed individuals later rearmed through unofficial purchases, sometimes with the indirect help of state agents looking to benefit from illegal trade, as per multiple reports. The fifth thing you need to know is political actors and local powers brokers. Political leaders on both sides of the border have also been implicated in the informal harming of communities. In South Sudan, some members of parliament and local government officials have allegedly sponsored youth groups, providing them with weapons under the pretense of protecting land or cultural autonomy. In Uganda, political tensions between local communities and the central government have occasionally flared into accusations of selective enforcement. Leaders in northern Uganda districts argue that while their communities are being told to disarm, especially in Skarmoja, their South Sudanese counterparts are being allowed or even encouraged to remain armed. The political manipulation of armed youth is a dangerous game. In many cases, the groups become uncontrollable, turning against their sponsors or engaging in criminal activity, yet they remain pawns in the border political contest over land, ethnicity, and border control. The sixth thing is the role of international actors and arms routes. Beyond local networks, international actors also play a role, directly or indirectly, in fueling arms flow to border communities. During South Sudan's early years of independence, several international suppliers, including from East Turn Road and the Middle East, sold weapons to the SPLA. Many of these weapons have since tricked down to non-state actors. There are also indications that weapons have entered South Sudan through Kenya, Ethiopia, and even the Democratic Republic of Congo. These arms find their way to border through a patchwork of traders and sympathizers. In Uganda, while arms are less likely to originate from abroad, cross-border leakage from South Sudan creates a black market. Weapons captured from LRA remnants, local militants, or even Kenya have also occasionally surfaced in the region. Community demand for arms. In fear further, it's not only supply that fuels. The community also feel abandoned by national governments. They fear attacks from rival ethnic groups, armed pastoralists, or foreign soldiers. In the absence of consistent state protection, harming themselves become a perceived necessity. Elders and cultural leaders have reported that without arms, they are vulnerable to cattle theft, land encroachment, and cross-border raids. In many villages, it is common to find a household with at least one firearm hidden from emergencies. That is a report from BBC. Youth are often recruited into armed groups not out of ideology, but out of survival, with limited employment, education, security, or carrying gun offers protection and at times prestige. Disarmament effort and their challenges. Uganda has conducted multiple disarmament campaigns, especially in Karamoja. While they have yielded partial success, guns continue to return via black market. In South Sudan, repeated attempts at disarmament have often failed due to lack of trust, poor coordination, and rearmament after peace collapsed. Joint Uganda-South Sudan disarmament efforts have been proposed, but face numerous challenges: mistrust between the two governments, political interference, and the risk of disarming one group while leaving its rivals unharmed. Some NGOs and civil society groups have called for a community-based approach to disarmament, one that pairs arms collection with development incentives like schools, clinics, and alternative livelihoods. Without addressing the root causes of insecurity, disarmament will always be a temporary fix. In conclusion, a complex web of actors and interests The arming of border communities between Uganda and South Sudan is not the work of a single actor. It is the result of a tangled web involving rogue soldiers, corrupt officials, ethnic military, political leaders, and black market traders, including international. The legacy of war, institutions, and economic desperation create fertile ground for weapons to proliferate. If lasting peace and security are to be achieved, the borderlands are multifaceted to be disarmed with immediate effect. Equally important is building trust between border communities and their respective governments. Until the question of who is arming the communities is answered, not just with facts, but with action, the guns will continue to speak louder than diplomacy in this restless frontier, and it could only get worse.